Homefront: The Revolution is coming out very soon on PC, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and it's the sequel to the 2011 game Homefront. Now, not everybody still has access to a PlayStation 3 or a 360, or maybe you just don't really want to play the game on PC given all those really mixed reviews, but hey, I'm here to save you the trouble. What's up everybody, I am Jake, and here is everything that you need to know about Homefront. So this is going to be split into two halves. The first half is the backstory of the events that lead up to the game, and the second half is the events of the game. So here is the backstory. Homefront is set in the United States of America in the year 2027, with the setting dating back to the 2010s. North Korea and other global powers have been under high tension due to the aggressive nature of North Korea's military operations, including the sinking of an ROKS Cheonan, a South Korean ship basically. Yes, a lot of this backstory is actually grounded in reality. That did actually happen. Now, North Korea have actually said they didn't do it, but that ship did actually sink in real life. 2013. Kim Jong-il has been dead for a year, and his son and successor Kim Jong-un has managed to successfully reunite North and South Korea into the Greater Korean Republic. This new country became a global superpower thanks to the enormous military strength of the North and the economic strength of the South. It would be like if the world's strongest man was the CEO of a global corporation. 2015. The world has its oil supply devastated due to a war between two now nuclear-armed states, Iran and Saudi Arabia. Many countries are left in debt and mass hysteria breaks out. The world is in panic mode. 2017. All overseas military presence is recalled by the United States, with the Pacific Ocean being one of the key points to be recalled. A year later, in 2018, the US-Japanese Treaty of Mutual Cooperation and Security is basically voided, and Japan becomes significantly weaker because of it. Japan is then easily conquered by the Greater Korean Republic and is then annexed. Japan is now the first state to be fully controlled by the GKR. 2022. The United States is in dire trouble with no signs of improvement. The US has undergone economic collapse, and an outbreak of Asian bird flu has resulted in the death of 6 million people. Think of that like the entire populations of Los Angeles, California and Houston, Texas being completely wiped out. The government of Mexico was then forced to issue a quarantine of the country. As the Asian bird flu epidemic continued to spread throughout North America, immigration quotas were put into place to allow only a certain number of people at a time to cross the border to seek refuge. 2024. Southeastern Asia is next up to be annexed by the GKR, including, worryingly, the Tiger Cub economies. The Tiger Cub economies is the collective term for Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines and Thailand, which are the foremost dominant countries in Southeast Asia. The GKR are rapidly becoming an unstoppable force and are gaining an empire that is reminiscent of Imperial Japan. 2025. The GKR supposedly launched a GPS satellite that was far more advanced than what we have now, or indeed in 2025, and the whole thing was launched as a signal of peace. What it actually was a weapon that orbits the Earth. The orbital weapon detonated a nuclear device over the United States that created an EMP burst that wiped out the entirety of the country's electrical infrastructure. The Korean People's Army, or KPA, then orchestrated an amphibious invasion, invaded from the sea, and wound up taking over control of Hawaii, as well as the majority of the US Pacific coast, which consists of California, Oregon, Washington State, as well as the already mentioned Hawaii and Alaska. The US military was nearly completely broken at this point, so the GKR launched a final attack to take the remaining states after paratroopers were deployed over the Midwestern states of the US. However, their attack was unsuccessful, as the Americans were able to successfully counterattack the GKR, resulting in the eastern states of the US remaining in control of the US. The United States of America is now divided into two, with the now irradiated Mississippi River being the divider. The western states of the US are now under GKR control and is known as the New Korean Federation of Occupied America, which, much like Japan, is now a puppet state that belongs to the Greater Korean Republic. Right, that's it for backstory. Now let's jump ahead to 2027, where the events of Homefront take place. You play as a man named Robert Jacobs, who was formerly a combat helicopter pilot for the US Marine Corps. He lives in Montrose, Colorado, when one day he's awakened from his apartment by Korean troops and is ordered to Alaska. What's in Alaska? A re-education camp, a place where people are indoctrinated and brainwashed into working for the GKR. Jacobs sees that his entire town has been taken over by Korean forces. Anyone resisting is executed and anyone of potential value is taken into custody. Jacobs is on the bus heading for Alaska when suddenly they're ambushed by American resistance fighters Connor and Rihanna. Connor was, like Jacobs, a former Marine, and Rihanna was a hunting expert. Rihanna and Connor escort Jacobs to Oasis, which is a hideout for the American resistance and was founded by a local state patrolman, Boone Carlson. Now, Jacobs' three saviors didn't just happen to hit the bus that he was on and take him to safety. They knew of his history as a military pilot and required his help to recover fuel for the US military forces that are scattered all over the place. Jacobs accepts the job and he, Boone, Connor, Rihanna and Hopper, a Korean American from California who is a technical expert, go ahead with the operation. What does the operation fully entail though? Well, there's a school currently being used as a labour facility, and in that school are tracking beacons. Our gang of rebels plans to steal several of these beacons with a little help from Arnie, their inside man. The beacons are going to aid them in hijacking fuel tanks. They simply place the beacons on the trucks, wait for them to leave, and hit them while they're mobile. Of course, this doesn't go according to plan though. Arnie betrays the group because the KPA have threatened his children. The fear tactics worked. The group is then forced to kill Arnie and all other enemy forces within the camp. The true horror of this war is then revealed as the group discovers a huge mass grave dug into the school's baseball field. The group is forced to hide among the dead bodies as a means to escape the ensuing Korean reinforcements. The rebels go on to continue attacks on the KPA and end up assaulting one of their facilities, which was formerly a discount warehouse store. Think of it a bit like Costco. In this store, they discover the fuel trucks and plant a beacon on one of them, effectively completing the first part of their mission. However, upon returning to Oasis, Boone and every single one of the people living in the base have been discovered and killed by the KPA. Now, because of this entire invasion, the United States that is currently inhabited by US citizens is basically reduced to walled towns and abandoned suburbs. Montrose is no different. The rebels need to breach through the wall in order to escape and continue their mission. To make matters worse, the KPAF, the Korean People's Air Force, is waging an attack on a nearby town for revenge in what happened in the raid the previous night. The group just manages to escape with other rebels from Colorado by successfully breaching the walls and closing the town. Our team gets word that there is something very useful that would heavily aid them in their mission, and it's sitting in a survivalist camp in Utah. The only problem is that the residents of this camp are hostile towards anyone. Koreans and Americans are not safe there. The team then has to try and infiltrate the camp rather than just asking to borrow what they need, and steals it. What is it? Well, it's a helicopter. This is where Jacobs fits into the whole thing. The rebels then set off in an attempt to hijack the fuel convoy. They are successful in their attack and, with air support from Jacobs, continue on to San Francisco, where the US military there is waiting for a special delivery of jet fuel. Because of this, a counteroffensive begins in order to retake San Francisco. The US forces launch their attack from Marin County and they end up retaking the majority of the Golden Gate Bridge. They have ground forces, aerial fighters, anti-aircraft guns, and even the US military comes in as reinforcements. It's looking like a turning point for the United States. As we near the San Francisco side of the bridge, the KPA begins to outgun the US thanks to a KPA armor column. The US though managed to gain an even bigger upper hand by reprogramming KPA ground-based air defenses, allowing the US to gain air superiority over the KPA. This almost amounts to nothing though, as American aircraft cannot figure out where to strike. There's far too much smoke and confusion to be able to pinpoint an exact location to launch a final attack. Connor knows that this will be a turning point in the war and sacrifices himself for the good of America. He lights a flare and on foot advances to the enemy convoy and orders an airstrike onto his own position. He died a hero to ensure that US troops could be able to regain the city of San Francisco. We pan out from the destruction of the Battle of the Golden Gate Bridge to see US troops advancing towards San Francisco. A British news station reports that the Bay Area counterattack is a major turning point for America's fight against the GKR occupation. The reporter then goes on to say that the EU Defence Council has scheduled an emergency meeting and have declared war on the Greater Korean Republic, with plans to rid the US of all Korean People's Army's forces. Fade to black, roll credits, and the end! Yes, this was a bit of a short one this time, but it saves you from having to play a pretty buggy game on PC, PS3 or 360, and you're all caught up, and this is everything that you've needed to know about Homefront in preparation for Homefront the Revolution. The game releases on the 17th of May for North America and the 20th of May for Europe on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Windows, Linux and OS X. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll be back real soon with everything that you need to know about Mirror's Edge. I hope you drop a comment, drop a like, and also subscribe for that next video. I have been Ninjake, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Pew!